welcome everyone. I haven't been here in a minute, but thank you, Pandora, who has been holding it down. So today we're going to be talking about the long game. So leading for legacy, not just results. And I'd love for you guys to chime in. But as always, welcome to Monday Momentum. Our goal is 20 minutes where you can reset just to step into the week with, again, always clarity with fire and direction. Today's session, right, is somewhat powerful and it's personal to me as well. And if you really take it to heart, right, if you think about not just today, but think about the future, it will shift kind of how you live, how you lead, how you build, all those things. And I think that's really important. And again, we're talking about the long game, right? You're leading for legacy. So you're thinking about tomorrow. Results are important. Results are how we measure, how we gauge where we're going, but you're thinking future. So so here's the deal, right? You can chase numbers, you can hit a number, you can hit a goal, you can chase goals, but it seems like very few people are building something that matters beyond themselves, right? You think about the people that leave legacies and you still hear their name today, but these people have been dead for like generations past, right? So that's how you have to start thinking that like your life is not about what you achieve. That's important. And I don't want to negate that, but it's also about what you pass on. So who are you? What are people saying about you when you're not in the room, and now also not in the room physically but not even alive? So today I want us to kind of explore kind of the difference between what success is, what legacy is, and then start thinking about how can you lead with intention in how you make decisions every day. Sometimes it's just easy to for us to just be doing the same thing over and over, but if you start being a little bit more intentional about what you're doing, what you're picking, what you're deciding to do, even in your daily decisions. And then I want us to kind of talk about some mindsets that we need to start building for if you're thinking about impact, not just income. So think long term. Okay, so those are kind of where I'm thinking we're going to go today. Use the chat. Make sure that you're commenting. Make sure that you're, doing all the things. But I definitely want to hear what people have to say about this. And I want to preface this, right? There is nothing wrong with chasing results. It's fine. But if all you build is short-term wins, right? Like what you win today, um, you kind of risk waking up one day and then wondering, did any of this actually matter? Like, did my life stand for something? And a lot of us, I think a lot more people think about that when they're on their deathbed. So that's just something to think about, right? Did any of this actually matter? Is what I'm doing today, does that matter in the long run? Am I building something? We have quarterly goals, and we have, quarterly meetings at Phoenix, and we measure results, right? So results are kind of measured in quarters or measured in years, but legacy, you think about it in decades. So you think about it like, what will 10 years look like? What will 20 years look like? What will 30 years look like? That is when you start, that's how you should be thinking about legacy. So when you compare like results and legacy, right? Results are revenue, results are titles. Like, okay, I went from this to this. There, results are deals, which we talk about at Phoenix, right? Results might even be status. But when you start thinking about legacy, I think it has more to do with people. So legacy looks like, what impact did I make? Who did I impact? What values did I live by while I was alive? What wisdom did I pass on to someone? You know how we always quote all these people who really changed our lives, and you wonder, well, is someone going to quote me one day? Like, am I really passing on wisdom? And it doesn't have to be like you're the most famous person in the world. It could be you pass it on to someone who's near and dear to you, and they live by those principles moving forward, right? And then back to people, what doors have you opened for others that you're helping others figure out what path they need to go on as you're doing your own? That's what you should be thinking about. And it's kind of giving me chills thinking about it because I'm asking myself those questions like, who am I impacting? Who am I teaching? What wisdom am I passing on? And that's what you should also be thinking about. It's so easy, so easy for us to be in the daily grind, right? To just go and do the same thing. And because because that's what we're trying to reach, a result and a goal. But when you pause and you think bigger, I think you'll realize that there is more to life than those results that you're trying to go after. They're not bad, but you need to start thinking bigger. And legacy is not about ego, so it's not about like what did I leave behind, right? It should almost feel like a responsibility. You know, what will still be standing when I'm gone? How did I show up? That's what I want you. So I need the chat to be going. And so I want people to be like, tell me, drop the word legacy, or if you're thinking, I want to build something that outlives me. Like anybody here should be so tickled, like to think that like you could build something that will outlive you. I think it's humbling. I think it's really amazing. I think it's really cool. And so hopefully like, we could start doing that today. So I want us to talk about. So now we talked about kind of results, legacy. If you are here, will you mute yourself if you're not muted, just so the background noise is a tolerance. Okay, there we go. I just helped him mute. So now I want us to talk about a little bit about like how do you, so we've talked about legacy, right? How do you live and how do you lead for legacy? What does that look like? I'm throwing around this fancy word, right? But what does that really mean? It's like, okay, Dr. Nkem, give me practical steps, right? So you can start now. You can start right where you are. And it's simple. We kind of make it very, very complicated, but I think it's very simple. I went to a conference. I want to share this. I don't think I've shared this with my team. I went to a conference 2 weekends ago, I think, and I this speaker, I want to remember his name to quote him, but I can't remember his name. But he said, businesses, right? They have core values. So a lot of people in the room were entrepreneurs, and he was like, every business has core values. You know, we at Phoenix, we have our core values. But then he said, in your life, right? Do you have core values in your life? And I was like, ooh, that's really good. You know, like I think there are things that I stand for and I stand by, but have I ever put pen to paper to write that down? So I took him up. I took that his assignment seriously, and I went back and I really started thinking about my core values and writing them down. And so I think when you start thinking about like legacy, right, you have to live aligned. So you have to, first thing you need to do is clarify those your core values. You cannot lead for legacy if you don't know what you stand for, right? If you're not like, hey, my name is Grace and I integrity is important to me, loyalty, truth, trust, those things are important to me. And so those are part of your core values. You won't stand for anything if you don't have that as the foundation. And a lot of legacy leaders, right, they make decisions that are based on principles. So it's not just pressure. It's not like making a decision today. It's really based on solid principles. So, I'm always asking you guys to do stuff, but I want you to define your top 3 values right now. Put it in the chat. I'll take a look at the chat. If that's something that you want to share with others, if you've already thought about it, please share it in the chat with me. And then maybe I'll call you out. But let me give you some examples, right? You could think about service. That could be a core value that you want to live by, you want to stand for. Integrity, I mentioned that. Family is a core value to a lot of people, and you can even start with your family as the people who you want to leave a legacy for. Excellence, so how you do things. Resilience, going after everything with everything that you have. So those are just some examples. So tossing, striving for excellence. Adetutu said that, yes. Stating those core values is key. I agree with that. So if you have yours, if you're thinking about it, drop it in the chat. And if you want me to help you think about it, just also ask that. Maybe I'll ask you some questions. But when you start thinking about your core values, I want you to then ask yourself, are my decisions aligned with my values? Now, this is hard, right? Because it's easy to maybe write them down and toss them on some shelf. But it's harder to then ask yourself that question. The things that I do every day, are they aligned with my values? Or is it just my calendar that I wake up every morning and I do what I say I'm supposed to do because I'm hitting a goal? But it has to be bigger than that, right? Adetutu said, activating leadership. I love that. Integrity and all ramifications. That is good. So kind of just things to think about. Now we talked about core values. As you start to think about legacy, this one is important, right? I want you to start building with people, not just for people. I'm learning, and you learn in entrepreneurship, in business, and in life, people are the core of what you do, who you are, how you impact. Results, every time we see, results of what you produce, and that's good. But legacy, you should think about it as like, who am I producing these things with? Who am I doing life with? Who am I running the race with? And sometimes legacy is not about being the hero. It's sometimes amounts to that, right? But it's about building other heroes, right? So if you think about this person like one of your heroes, just pause and think about all the lives that they've impacted, all the people that are quoting them, all the people that are reading their books, all the people that are doing what they say they are doing. Who are you mentoring? And sometimes, like, you might think, well, I don't know anything. How can I mentor someone? But being an expert is just being smarter than one other person in the room. And I know all of you here are smarter than one person. So you can hold someone's hand. You can empower someone. You can open the door for someone. We sometimes make it so much more complicated than it needs to be, but it really should be simple. So this week, it's Monday. I love that we do this on Monday, because then I want to empower you, right? Pour into one person who can carry a part of your mission forward. Whether you teach them, whether you empower them, whether you invite them, whether you do something, just do something, right? Again, it's not big. It's not, we think we have to make these ginormous steps to make a difference and to be known and to be heard. But every day I tell my team, right, that 1,000-mile journey starts with one step, and you have to just take a step in the right direction and keep going. So if you think about like one person, it might be your little sister, right? That you say, what, I'm going to spend some time today and hang out with her, and impact her. It might be someone, if you're in a group, and you're leading a group, maybe on social media, you might put something there today, and you might even teach them and say, hey, how many people have like life core values? Let's create them together. It might be your team. If you have a team, you might want to, in one way or the other, empower them. Like, how can I help you get closer to maybe one goal? Is there something that I'm doing that you're seeing that you'd like to emulate? Think about that. So I'm giving you work. I want you to come up with your core values, but I also want you to pour into one person this week. And then the last thing I want to think, as you're thinking about legacy, I want you to think decades, and then when you think decades, you start acting today. So you take the tiny, consistent steps. We have talked about this before. Take those steps today, but then think in decades, right? There's that quote that says that we overestimate what we can do in a year, because we make these big plans, but we underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And it's in those consistent daily steps that you think that you're going to make a difference 10 years from now, that you're going to make a difference 20 years from now. I've seen, the more I'm trying to grow, right, I've seen that legacy leaders, they zoom out. They don't just ask what's urgent today, right? They're thinking about, like I said, 10, 20, 30 years. What will matter 10 years from now? That's how you should start thinking. But this is the key. And as I'm wrapping up, kind of, I want you to be thinking. And Pandora said, building with people, not just for people. That's solid stuff. I agree. But this is the key, right? That long-term vision, again, like I said, I want you to keep this. That long-term vision is built through short-term consistency, daily, consistent steps every single day. You can even, that can apply to anything. It can apply to health. It can apply to wealth. It can apply to your vision. It can apply to your mission. It can apply to like the plans you want to make, where you want to be. Daily, consistent steps every single day. That's how you move closer to your goal. That's how you move closer to building a legacy. That's how you take the next step. So if you're like, okay, well, I daily consistent steps, like, well, what does that even mean, right? I want you to ask yourself every day, does your decision honor that big picture? Does it honor your core values? Does it align with them? This is another thing. And this one should like hit at your heart. But like, would the future version of me thank me for the decisions that I'm making today? I want you to think about that. Will like future Dr. Nkem look back and say, I'm so glad you did that thing today, because it set me up for who I become 10 years from now, right? The person you want to be 10 years from now, you're doing those things today that is building her, or if you're a guy, that's building him. So you have to ask, like, will that my 10-year version look back and be like, man, you rocked because you did this 10 years ago? Ask yourself that question. And if you're not happy with that answer, then kind of time to do something. So my job is to ask you the question. My job is to help you lay the foundation. My heart is to help hold your hand and kind of guide you to that thing that you want to be, or that person that you want to become. So if I thought about maybe something that you can do today, right? Choose one action today that will reflect your long-term game. And when nobody's looking is when it matters the most. So if you want us to hold you accountable, if you want me to hold you accountable in our community, drop it in the chat, and then we will hold you accountable, right? And you will know, because we're going to be asking ourselves these questions every day. Will my future self look back and say, well done, you did that thing today and you set me up for success tomorrow? So this week, right, I kind of talked about it, but this is what I want you to think about this week. I said it before, I want you to clarify your core values. Those three things that you're like, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. When people think about me, this is what I want them to think about. And then invite one person, and like invite one person to know what you're thinking, what you're doing. But then also remember, it's about people. So invest in one person intentionally. Remember, you might think, well, I don't know anybody or nobody, but as long as you are better than one person, then pour into that person. And it's just that simple. And then make one daily decision with your long-term goal in mind, with that legacy that you're hoping to build. So as we close, and I want to make this short and sweet so that you can get back your lunch hour and then think about kind of how you want to implement this week. But success is what you achieve, which is wonderful. But legacy is what you're going to leave behind. Who do you want people to remember you for? What do you want people to remember you for? How do you want people to remember you? So I want you to think about, build that business, grow the wealth, hit all those milestones, but don't forget to build something that will speak when you are no longer in the room, when you're no longer there. So that's all I want you to think about today. I want you to think about the long-term goal. And that is also in like wealth building, right? We're not winning for today. We're planting the seed so that it will grow. And like 10 years, we'll start reaping all those rewards. So as you leave, I want you to think really hard about building something that lasts, something that will outlive you, and something that people will hold on to. So that's all I got. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming to hang out with me. And I'm so glad to be back. So yes, Grace said this is the stuff we need to teach our families. Building generational wealth is so key. I completely agree. And you start today. Sometimes sometimes you can get overwhelmed. And so you can think, well, how do I start? Where do I start? But I promise you, it's just that tiny step, the consistency. You build, you start very small, and then you add to that. And so that's what that kind of looks like. So yeah, so if you have questions, comments, please toss it in the chat. Pandora said, I agree. I love that. So if there's last minute comments, concerns, thoughts, if you want us to hold you accountable, drop it in. I'll build when no one is looking. That is the start. It's not when everyone is watching you. It's what you do behind closed doors. It's those muscles that you're strengthening, right? It's the reps that you're putting in every day. That is, people will see that over time. Like, you can't hide that. So it's what you do behind closed doors. I love that. Anyone want to toss something in before we wrap up? I really like that. I'll build when no one is looking. That's a good one. Okay. Well, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your week, rest of your Monday. If you have, let's jump into the community. So if you want to build on something, if you want us to help you create your core values, if you want to kind of figure out what legacy looks like, how you can start thinking about that, and don't let it overwhelm you, right? It's something you're building. You have time. You're building for tomorrow and for the future. So if you want us to kind of walk you through that, we'll do it in the community. But until then, I would gladly see you guys next week. You're very welcome. I'm glad. I hope it was helpful. I'm hoping that you'll take something out of here, and it'll be the start. Remember, our goal is to continue to plant, germinate, water, and then watch it soar.